are you guys today?
Good.
Awesome. Okay, do you remember last class how we talked about physics, the science of how and why things move?
Yes.
Awesome. Remember we got to meet Sir Isaac Newton. He's one of the fathers of modern physics.
Yeah.
He's famous because he came up with the 3 laws of motion. Today we're going to talk about the first law of motion, which is also called the law of inertia. So the law of motion basically states that objects want to remain at rest or in motion unless acted upon by an external force. So what does that mean? It basically means that objects are lazy. Objects want to keep doing what they're doing. So if an object is resting, it's stable, it's not moving, it wants to keep doing that. If an object is moving, it wants to keep moving. It doesn't want to stop, okay? It's lazy. Something has to force that object to change. Scientists have a word for that. It's called inertia. Okay, right here, let's say it together. Inertia. Awesome. So now let's talk about how that applies here on Earth, where we are. Is my Puffmobile, which you guys are all going to get a chance to make on your own, is it going to move on its own? No. I have to exert an external force on this object. So what's going to happen if I blow on it?
It's gonna move.
Yeah, let's try.
Whee!
Is it moving?
Yeah.
A little bit. What happens if I push it? What do you think is going to happen?
It'll fly off the table.
It's going to move even more, right? But wait, I thought I just said that things that are in motion want to stay in motion, and things that are at rest want to stay at rest. So if I've pushed this Puffmobile into motion, why isn't it just going to fly off the desk and keep rolling?
It stops.
It stops, but why is it going to stop? Any guesses, Casey?
Because it might land on the rug and because you're not like helping it.
Yeah, so the rug is an obstacle, right?
That's
What
what
else? What else, Brady?
friction.
Maybe, yeah, friction from the ground, exactly. So great job, you guys. We've got an obstacle. It's going to roll across the ground, which is going to slow it down. And then it's also moving through the air. So have you guys ever tried to ride your bike or run on a windy day? You kind of feel that wind pushing you back, right? You have to try extra hard to move forward, right? That's called air resistance. The same thing is happening to the Puffmobile. As the mobile moves through the air is slowing it down and it's going to stop. Awesome job. All right, so now we know what happens on Earth. What about in space? Is the same thing going to happen in space?
No.
If this Puffmobile's in motion, is it going to stay in motion or is it going to stop? Raise our hands. Sky, what do you think?
It's gonna stay in motion. It's not gonna move. It's just gonna be floating around, and then if it hits an asteroid, it's just gonna break apart.
Awesome, good thinking, that's right. It is going to stay in motion, but why is it going to stay in motion? Brody, any
There's
guesses?
no gravity in space.
There's no gravity, so those same external forces that we have here on Earth are not the same thing up in space. So if I'm up floating around in space and I push this Puffmobile out into the air, out into space, it's going to stay in motion, okay? It might actually enter into the orbit of another planet and just rotate through that planet for the rest of its life, okay? Awesome. So basically, things in motion, the first law of motion, the law of inertia, is basically things want to keep doing what they're already doing unless they're forced to change, okay? So let's review. If I push an object into motion on space, is it going to rest or is it going to stay in motion? It's going to stay in motion. What about on Earth? If I push the Puffmobile on Earth, is it going to stay in motion or is it going to stop, Chris?
It's gonna stop.
It's going to stop. Who knows why it's going to stop? What do we call that? Casey or Queen? Or can you give us some examples that we talked about of what would make it stop?
What would make it stop?
Yeah, exactly. Good job, Queen. So gravity in the air is what she said. What were the other obstacles we talked about on Earth that would slow the Puffmobile down? The carpet, an obstacle, right? Or the ground. Awesome job. Okay, so now I want you guys to think. put on your thinking caps, and I want you to come up with your own definition for the first law of motion in your own words, okay? I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to think about it, and then who's ever ready to share, raise your hand. The first law of motion. Sky, you want to give it a try?
You know, like when something's dead in the ocean, like a dead fish? Well, it used to be moving, but either way, it's still moving. When the water's pushing it, which creates it to move, but if there was no water, it wouldn't.
Okay,
So
that's good example.
Of gravitation.
Okay, good thinking. So something in the ocean, even though it's dead, it's still moving because the water is pushing it. Okay, any other examples or ideas, Casey?
If something was out and it was a really windy day, the wind could push it, even though it's not alive.
Yeah, good job. So the wind is going to affect it and cause that object to go from resting to motion. Good job. What do you guys remember? What's the word that scientists use to call objects lazy? Brody? Close. Remember, it's on the board.
Inertia.
Inertia. Awesome job, Brody. Okay, now you guys are going to get to use your knowledge of the first law of motion to create a puffmobile like I did. Okay, and you're going to use different forces and varying forces to see how fast you can move it and how fast you can get it to go from rest to motion, and try to limit some of those obstacles that'll help it go faster. Awesome job, guys. Let's go ahead and get started.
Okay,